I lost custody of my son to my ex-wife's lies. But when he turned 18, he wrote one book, exposed the truth, and destroyed her reputation in front of everyone. When my son, Jay, male 18, was 6, his mother, Jane, female 40, and I, male 39, got separated. It was a bad marriage from the get-go. We got married when we found out that Jane was pregnant with Jay and tried to become a family for our son. After he was born, things went sour. Initially, I worked hard to provide for the family without giving up on my dreams. I wanted to write professionally as a career, but I had enough sense to know that novels will not feed my wife and child. So I had 2 jobs as well, one at a pizza parlor and another at a car wash. I also ensured I could spend quality time with Jay because he was my world despite the circumstances of his birth. I wanted to be there for him every step of the way, unlike my own absent father. Although I was trying my best, Jane was not very supportive or invested. Hell, never mind me, she was barely there for her kid. I do not know how to put it, but it is like she only thought of Jay as an accessory without ever realizing how to take care of a child. I know it sounds like a mean thing to say, and I honestly would get someone not supporting their spouse if they had a pipe dream and were never working towards it. But I guess both of us were mutually incompatible. Her lack of involvement with Jay was also a big source of friction, as I never wanted him to feel unloved. Jane was not really working either. She did a few odd jobs, but her main responsibility in the family was to take care of Jay. Due to her constant lack of faith in me, our relationship deteriorated, and I eventually found out she had been cheating on me for well over 5 months. I was devastated, and although I had lost a lot of love for Jane by that point, cheating was a real low blow. When I told her I wanted a divorce, I got zero emotional response from her, as if she did not care. However, I also wanted to ensure custody of Jay fell with me, since I could not bear to lose him. Jane wanted to keep custody of Jay, though. I mean, less her, and more her parents, as they did not want to lose their only grandchild. While they knew that Jane had cheated on me, they chose to ignore it, hide the evidence surrounding it, and instead make up an entirely different story about me being unfit to raise a child due to my drunkenness. I mean, really? I had a beer on the weekends, and that is it. They also testified that Jane felt unsafe in the marriage, and I had denied her the opportunity to find a job to keep her under my control. As you can tell, none of this worked in my favor, and courts back then, even now to be honest, were biased towards the wife's side of the story. Not only did I lose custody of Jay, but my reputation was tarnished due to the rumor-mongering Jane and her family engaged in. My social circle got a lot smaller, but the people who believed my side of the story were real friends. I mean, I genuinely thought it would be obvious from my behavior and the way I acted that Jane had made everything up, but I guess not. Jay, of course, did not have a clue why his mother got full custody, and he did not know what was going on at all. For the sake of his peace, I did not exactly rant about his mother being a toxic person in front of him either. All I told Jay was that his parents had fallen out of love. If he ever needed me, I would be there for him. After that, I lost my favorite roommate, my friend, and could only visit Jay on the weekends. I pushed hard to have him come stay with me every now and then, but Jane kept putting roadblocks in the way. After that point, things went downhill for a while. Jane and her family slowly started poisoning Jay against me, while also not exactly treating him the best. They told him that I was abusive, and Jane constantly complained about me and the terrible things I had done. Credit where it is due, I do think his grandparents treated him with a lot of love and care, but Jane was a different story. She was quite negative about Jay's hobbies and interests and extremely controlling. He did not have a happy childhood since he thought I was even worse than his mom. Jay kept a distance from me, and although I could meet and talk with him, I guess he thought I'd been a vicious person in the past. However, when Jay turned 14, Jane dumped him off at my house last minute for a week, saying she had to go somewhere. I do not think she had asked Jay for his consent on the matter, and it was this, or live alone while she went off. Her parents were not available. So, I finally got a chance to spend some time with my son. Things were really awkward at first, and I could tell that he did not trust me. When I asked where Jane had gone, he roughly replied that she had gone for a getaway with her new boyfriend, Brad. Apparently, this was quite common, and he felt like a burden in his own mom's life. I felt really bad about this, and we started talking more and more this week. One day, he casually mentioned to me, while we were playing Mario Kart on my old GameCube, "Pop, you seem like a nice person. I do not get why you were so shitty with Mom. It just does not add up." I stopped playing, looked straight at him, and decided to tell him the whole story then and there. It finally felt like he might believe me now. With that, I told him everything. and he managed to piece together odd things about Jane's behavior that corroborated my story. I cannot even begin to tell you how angry he looked at that moment. Something had changed then and there. Although he did not bring it up again during the week, he apologized for the way he had been treating me and told me that he will push to come to visit me more often. Apart from that, I will always remember that week as the time I mentored my son about writing. I should mention that by now I had become a relatively successful writer, especially due to the ease of publishing on the internet, and it was a steady source of money for me. Jay was also a budding writer, and I recall discussing the principles of a good story with him. It was a good time. Since then, things have changed quite a lot. A few weeks after Jane came back, she called and started throwing around aspersions about me poisoning Jay against her. The irony, and I played dumb. He was acting cold to his mother after the information he had gotten from me, and she was retaliating by calling him ungrateful, spoiled, etc. Things between them soured even more, and their relationship was quite icy. I will summarize the next 4 years in Jay's life with 2 big events. One being that he ran away from Jane's place and came over to stay at mine because, apparently, she had insulted his short stories that had been recently published. She forced him to come back by threatening to call the police on me, using the move that my history, ergo her lies, would play in her favor. Eventually, he had to go back against his will, and I could not do anything about it, as much as it hurt. Second, he eventually found out that his grandparents were involved in the lies against me, leading to him saying a lot of hurtful things. I do not know the full story here, but basically that led Jane to figure out that I must have told him something. She made my life hell. But now that the cat was out of the bag, there was not much she could do. 1 month before his 18th birthday, Jay called me and told me he was planning on moving out. He was going to get an apartment about 1 hour away from my place, and while I welcomed him to come to stay with me, I think he wanted to build an independent life. I agreed with his plans, and he also told me that he was going to expose Mom for what she is. That is when the real bombshell came out. He had written a book about his experiences living with Jane throughout the last few years, and even had a publisher interested. While it was fictional, Jay had written the scathing foreword that indicated Jane as the villain of the story. Some part of me wanted to ask him to modify the foreword because I felt like it may be more drama than necessary, but on the other hand, I felt like he had a creative liberty to do what he wanted. I read through his novel and it was good. I even offered some constructive criticism and he took it in good spirits. Jay left the house as soon as he turned 18. After this, I could tell that he was visibly happier, more focused on developing his career. A couple of months after the move out, the book was also published. I am obviously not going to put it in here, but if you guys are interested, you can direct message me for the link. This novel completely ruined Jane's life because it took off. A lot of teens could relate to the toxic parent storyline, and there were a lot of posts about it. Jay even got interviewed about it on a few news websites. I could not be prouder of my boy, but obviously Jane had a different take on things. Her social media was filled with comments cussing her out for being a terrible parent, to the point where she ended up deleting her socials. Her job was also in jeopardy after the story came out, and her parents apparently found out about Jane's abusive behavior towards her son through the novel. She had hoodwinked them into thinking that she was doing the best job raising Jay, and I guess Jay never told his grandparents the real story. Maybe he lost trust in them after what I told him. Jane has been blowing up my phone, and thinks that I manipulated my son into writing this story to ruin her life. I mean, that is clearly not what I did, but I did encourage his writing and also contributed to the novel after I knew of its existence. Would it just have been better to modify it to be a little less scathing? Update 1. My former in-laws reached out to me after the book gained a lot of traction. They apologized for lying about my character, and told me that they regret what they had done. They also asked if I could speak to Jay on their behalf and make amends, as he was not talking to them after he moved out. I agonized over that call for a while because I know they love Jay a lot, but it is tough to put aside their actions from the past. I feel like Jay also has a say in this matter, so I will speak to him about what he wants to do too. Update 2. Jay and I went to go talk to his grandparents and it went quite well. I think Jay should retain a bond with them, and he is cool with that if he knows I am cool with it too. Jane had apparently had a huge fight with her parents about their decision, but they told me that they decided to go low contact with her due to how terribly she is behaving. Update 3. Jane is filing a defamation case against her son. This is actually hilarious to me as I type it out. I know a Columbia-trained lawyer, but this case does not have a leg to stand on, laughing out loud. Not the asshole, and you went easy on Jane in my opinion. I would have called her out way earlier, and I am sorry you lost so much time with your son. Next story, I worked as a graphic designer in my aunt's small business. It was fairly basic stuff I did, but I took pride in my work and loved the freedom it gave me creatively. My aunt and I got on well prior to the business, but she became an issue to work on near immediately. It became cutthroat, deadlines, no thanks, and little pay. So, I will admit, I got annoyed. I started putting less effort into the business, as it just was not paying off. I had to look for a new job as the money just would not cover me anymore. My aunt and family were disappointed in my lack of interest towards her business, but refused to listen to why I had to change. I still worked in the business with my free time, and I had accepted further pay reduction due to my now split priorities. But this apparently was not enough. My aunt came to me a few weeks after I had moved to part-time work and asked me to make up an advertisement for a full-time graphic designer. I was annoyed and hurt, but did it anyway. Since she wanted a full-time worker, I quit and submitted the advertisement to her as my final bit of work for the business. I went home and assumed that would be the end of it. A few days later, I get angry messages and calls from my family, asking why I left the company when I knew my aunt was struggling. I was at a loss and called my aunt, who shouted down the phone at me. Eventually, my sister gave me the full story which my family had been told. Basically, my aunt wanted me to move to full-time and thought the advertisement would be a good indicator of that desire, and she was devastated that I quit. At this point, I was exhausted, and the few days I had away from everything really reminded me how good it felt to relax. So, when my aunt called me and apologized, offering me my job back, I turned her down. She explained she needed my work back and did not have enough money to hire anyone else, assuming I would go back on my reduced pay. I still refused, and we have not spoken since. Her business failed about 1 month later, and everyone is blaming me. Not the asshole. And you did not ruin your aunt's business. No business has ever gone under because their graphic designer quit. You were one symptom of a failing business, and as the owner, your aunt bears that responsibility. Maybe she is bad at running a business, maybe it was the market, maybe it was sheer bad luck, but it sure as heck was not because their graphic design fell behind. She is angry and bitter because she failed, and is looking to pass blame to those around her. Hopefully, her denial phase is short, and she can move on along with the rest of the family. Next story. I have lived in my house for almost 3 years. I live on a corner house next to the road, a back road. A lot of the kids on the neighborhood play ball games in that area. It does not bother me much, apart from when they kick it against my fence. One thing that does bug me is how often they would come to the door because the ball had gone over into the garden. I know this seems like such a small thing, but I am talking 5 to 6 times a day. I used to work from home, so I would just go get the ball and ask them to be more careful. However, I recently changed jobs and now work out of the house. My partner is still home through the day but is hard of hearing and never hears the kids when they knock. She actually is using more sign language than anything, or reads lips. So, she really cannot hear well at all without her hearing aid, which she only really wears when she is leaving the house anyway. Since I have not been home to answer the door, I found out the kids have actually been lifting my fence panel, coming into my garden to get their balls. I hate this. It makes me feel like my space and privacy is violated. I also have 4 dogs who are using outside when the weather is nice. I have cameras, so have caught them doing this and have evidence. But their parents do not seem to care. So, I decided to screw all my fence panels in so they could no longer be lifted. Now, every night I go home, I am greeted with a bunch of angry kids telling me their ball is in my garden and they cannot get in. I just ignore them and throw the ball over without speaking to them. Yesterday, when I got home, one of the kids' mothers was at my front door. When I got out of my car, she instantly started yelling and calling me a thief for not getting her son's ball. I told her I was at work, and she started yelling about how my partner could have sorted it. I told her I would go get the ball to calm her down, and she said I needed to fix my fence as it was broken. The kids could not get them on their own anymore. I told her it was not broken, and I had done that so that they could not get in. This made her very angry, and she started yelling. I told her I could not have them letting my dogs out, and also mentioned how they almost broke my fence once, and she threatened to call the police for theft the next time I do not get the ball immediately. So, am I the asshole for stopping them from getting into my garden, and could they actually call the police? I am not even home to get the ball. Update. After reading through some responses, I decided to take action. I looked through my camera footage and found all the times they have entered my garden or kicked the ball over in the last few months. I actually found one from January that they had actually come in and opened my rabbit cage up to find the rabbit. Luckily, my rabbit was not out there, as it was winter. Following this, I went to the woman's house and met her husband. I explained what had happened, and although he was not yelling like his wife, he did not seem to care. So, I explained I have evidence of his son trespassing on my property, damaging property, and evidence of potential theft, since he was opening my rabbit cage and pulling on my shed door. At first he tried to laugh it off, but then I pulled up one of the videos on my phone and told him I was reporting this to the police. He stopped laughing and apologized and said he would speak to both his wife and son, and to please not involve the police. I politely thanked him and left. On my way home, I ran into one of the other parents and filled her in on what was going on. She immediately apologized for her son's involvement. Her son had never entered my property, but has also lifted the fence and kicked the ball. She assured me he would be grounded and have the footballs taken away from him, and told him if they ever do it again, I should pop the balls. I did call the non-emergency number and got it all logged in, the video sent, and the kind lady on the phone informed me if it ever happens again, I can call and press charges. I can actually press charges now, but she advised me to wait as they will only get a warning, as this is the first time it has been logged. This also means if they do call to complain about theft, they will be informed of the logs against them, rather than any action against me. I have also informed my insurance company, who assured me, since it is logged with the police and I have screwed my fences, I am in the clear. But they also recommend I get a no trespassing sign, so I will do that at the weekend. Thank you so much for all your help and advice. I will admit, I had absolutely no idea what to do about it, or if I even had a stand legally. So, thank you all for the info you have provided. Not the asshole. It is your fence to protect your bloody property. What does she think the police is going to do? As I sit here in my quiet living room, the evening sun filtering through the curtains, casting long shadows across the stack of Jay's books on the coffee table, I can't help but reflect on how far we've come. It's been a few months since the dust settled on the whole ordeal. The book, the fallout, the family reconciliations, and yet, the emotions still swirl inside me like a storm that refuses to fully dissipate. Pride, relief, anger, regret, they all mix together in this strange cocktail that leaves me both exhilarated and exhausted. Jay's novel wasn't just a story, it was a reckoning, a mirror held up to the years of pain we'd both endured. And now, with Jane's reputation in tatters and our family piecing itself back together, I find myself grappling with feelings I never anticipated. First, there's the overwhelming pride in Jay. God, that kid, man now, has turned into something extraordinary. When he was little, I'd watch him scribble stories on napkins during our weekend visits, his tiny brow furrowed in concentration. Back then, I dreamed of nurturing that spark, but Jane's barriers made it feel impossible. Now seeing his book climb the charts, reading the reviews from strangers who say it captured the raw truth of toxic parenting, it fills me with a warmth I can't describe. He's not just my son, he's a voice for so many others who suffered in silence. During his interviews, when he spoke about reclaiming his narrative, I teared up every time. I remember calling him after one, my voice cracking as I said, "You did it, buddy. You turned the pain into power." His response? A quiet laugh and, "Thanks to you, Dad. You showed me how." That moment healed something deep inside me, a wound from all those lost years when I felt like a failure, as a father. But pride doesn't erase the anger. Oh, the anger, it's still there, simmering beneath the surface. Jane's lies didn't just steal custody, they stole time, precious irreplaceable time. I think about the birthdays I missed, the school plays where I sat in the back row like a stranger, the nights Jay cried himself to sleep believing I was the monster. When he ran away at 16, pounding on my door with tears in his eyes after Jane trashed his writing, my heart broke all over again. I wanted to march over there and confront her, but I held back for his sake. Now, with her defamation suit looming like a bad joke, the fury resurfaces. How dare she? After everything, the cheating, the neglect, the poison she fed him, she has the audacity to play victim. I laugh about it with my lawyer friend over beers, but inside, it burns. Part of me wonders if I should have fought harder in court back then, hired a better attorney, or exposed her affair publicly. Regret creeps in during quiet moments. Did I enable this by staying silent too long? Could I have spared Jay years of confusion? Yet, intertwined with the anger is a profound sense of relief. Relief that the truth is out, not through my words but his. When Jay first told me about the book, I hesitated. "Son, are you sure? This could blow up in ways we can't control." But he was adamant, his eyes fierce with the same determination I saw in him at 14 during that Mario Kart confession. Publishing it felt like exhaling after holding my breath for 12 years. watching Jane's social media implode, her carefully curated image of the perfect mom shattered by comments from readers who'd lived similar hells. It was cathartic. Not vengeful, exactly, but just. Her parents' apology call was surreal. Hearing them admit they were wrong, that they'd been manipulated by her too, lifted a weight I didn't know I carried. Driving to their house with Jay for that reconciliation talk, my hands gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles whitened. But seeing him hug them, tentative at first, then genuine, brought tears to my eyes. "We're family," his grandmother whispered, and for once it felt true, untainted by lies. Of course there's guilt too. Did I contribute to the drama by encouraging his writing? When he shared the manuscript, I suggested tweaks to make the characters more nuanced, but I never pushed him to soften the foreword. It was his story, his pain to articulate. Still, Jane's accusations haunt me. "You manipulated him." No, I didn't. But maybe I could have advised more caution. Her life's in ruins now, job on the line, friends distancing themselves, even her parents going low contact. Part of me pities her. We were young and foolish when we married, both unprepared for parenthood. But pity fades when I remember Jay's hollow eyes during those forced returns home. No, she reaped what she sowed. These days, joy dominates more than anything. Jay's thriving in his apartment, churning out short stories and planning his next book. We meet weekly for dinner, talking plots and life like equals. Last weekend he surprised me with a signed copy of his novel, inscribed, "To Dad, the real hero. Thanks for believing." I choked up, hugging him tighter than ever. It's like reclaiming those lost years, one conversation at a time. My own writings flourish too. Inspired by him, I've started a memoir, though mine's less explosive. The social circle that shrank after the divorce? It's grown again, with true friends who stuck by me now celebrating our victory. Looking ahead, I'm optimistic but cautious. The lawsuit will fizzle. Our lawyer says it's baseless, especially with Jay's evidence of her behavior. Jane's threats feel empty. A last gasp from someone cornered by her own actions. As for me, I've learned to forgive. Not for her, but for us. Jay and I are building something unbreakable now, free from her shadow. It's not perfect, emotions like these don't vanish overnight. But in the quiet evenings, flipping through his book, I feel grateful. Grateful for the second chance, for the truth's triumph, and for the son who turned our tragedy into triumph. Life's messy, but damn, it's worth it.